hallelujah belongs to you. My hallelujah belongs to you. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it.
My hallelujah belongs to you.
My hallelujah belongs to you. My hallelujah, oh, oh, my hallelujah to you. 'Cause you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve it. All of the glory. All of the glory belongs to you. Oh, all of the glory to you. 'Cause you deserve it. You deserve it. Say hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. All the glory and all the honor and all the praise. You deserve it. Oh, you deserve it. You
Hi, this is Bishop Mack, Breaking Bread with Bishop. I'm so glad and thankful that you have decided to join me on today for our Bible study and our time to just kind of talk and chat and just share. Listen, I pray that you are masking up and got Union Baptist mask here, and I pray that you're wearing this, and we want you to stay healthy. We want you to stay safe. It's so vitally important that you do this, and we got to turn this thing around, and so I'm praying that you would do that. Also, want you to know that we got the book in, and Who Stole Sunday Morning? The new copies are back, and so you can actually get this book and go to sirwaltermack.com, and they won't back order, and so you can actually go get this copy now. And we'll have this delivered to you in just a few days. And so I want you to get this. Churches are asking me to do Zoom Bible studies with their churches, and actually glad to do that. Some phone worship Bible studies with their churches, and walking through this book, because This book covers what it is that you need to be thinking about as we go back into the church, and so that we don't get into that plight that we were in prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, so many churches had fallen off in membership, and church people were not leaving the church; they just were not coming to church. And so we don't ever want to make that mistake again. So I pray that you would go get this book and let it be a blessing to your life. Amen. So, all right, listen, today we're going to be talking about managing transitions. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. I want to talk about managing transitions because if you don't manage this moment, you can make some critical mistakes that will have you taking the next 5, 10, 15 years recovering from these mistakes that you could make. And so I want you to know that it's so important that we learn how to manage or steward or be a good steward over the time that we are presently in. So I just want to take maybe 15, 20 minutes to walk you through this, and let's talk about managing transitions. There are so many different components of the world that's in transition right now. There are churches that are in transition. Churches, I would need you all to pray for churches because there has been a prediction that some churches won't survive this pandemic. There are some churches that financially won't survive. There are some churches whose membership won't survive for various reasons. And so we got to pray for our churches, all right, because many churches are going through transition. There's some churches that have not been able to meet because they don't have necessarily the technology to pull their people together. And so that's why I thank God for Bobby Brower and our team and Carlos Boyd and Keyshawn and Trayshawn and James and the rest of them that's been working with this because, we did not have that team. We would have been in trouble. And so, and Minister Webster and our Zoom choir, man, that Zoom choir has been off the chain. And our minister music and all of that whole team. But let me just say that every church doesn't have those things. And so as a result of, some churches won't survive this transition. And so, and I don't say that boastfully, I say that because we need to be praying for those congregations that God will keep them, and I do believe that God will. Pastors are being creative everywhere, and that's a major blessing. Corporations are going through transitions. I was reading the newspaper, and I was so glad to see that BB&T, a major bank in this city and throughout this state, and a major bank in this nation, has just apologized for their role in slavery, the money that they made off of slavery. All right, and that's a transition for that bank. All right, and so now other things are coming out. Other banks are now coming forth, and they are now confessing that that's right, we have not done this right, and so we must make this right. And that's so critical and so important that that as they make transition, that sometimes you have to go back and fix things before you go forward. And yes, and so then now BB&T Bank is doing that. And then we have couples. I have gotten more calls with couples, married couples and dating couples who are going through a transition. This pandemic is really forcing couples to deal with issues that typically they would not deal with. All right. So in many of our families and our marital setups and our dating setups, we were able, prior to the pandemic, everything was so fast. We were constantly moving and constantly going, and a fire could be burning. And when we drive up in the driveway and we see that fire burning, we could even pull off and find somewhere else to go instead of dealing with that fire that's burning in that house. You understand? But now that you're in quarantine, and now that you can't really go in places you don't have to go to, you're having to confront matters with your spouse, and you're having to confront matters with your girlfriend and your boyfriend and your fiance, and you just can't leave it. You got to deal with it. Okay, and so there's a transition there that's taking place in marriages and in relationships, and then even with children. I mean, there's a whole debate about whether or not children should be going back to school. Just right off the bat, I just try to keep it real. I don't try to make things so political and so deep. Right off the bat, children have no business going back to school right now. There's a pandemic that is surging. The numbers are going up. All right. I want to see children go back to school. I have a little niece that needs to be in school. She's brilliant. She's smart, and she needs to be in school. And she has parents that are able to invest in her. That means she'll still be able to function. But some kids don't have that. And so I understand that. And we have children in this church who we have to be very concerned about. But, who cares how smart you are if your child is not living, if they're sick, or if the whole house is sick as a result of the child coming home with COVID from somebody else's house. So, we understand what the governor is saying and all that, but we got to use wisdom. And we got to apply wisdom, all right? Just because things are lawful don't mean that it's expedient. And anyway, so that's my take on that. But there's transition. Some of these parents are trying to push their kids out of the home because you realize that your child really is off the chain. Yeah, your child really is off the chain. The teacher's been trying to tell you. You've been going down to the school, turning the school out, turning tables over, trying to take up for your little Pookie Boo and all that. And you done found out little Pookie Boo is little Chucky. and now you're trying to push them out of the house to get back to school, when in fact, take a step back for a moment, and I'm going to talk to you in this message on how we need to handle transitions, okay? So let's handle transitions. So let's go to the word. I'm not going to do a lot of PowerPoints in this message and PowerPoint videos and all. I'm just going to come with the word with you tonight, okay, or today, whenever you're watching this, all right? First of all, Isaiah 43, verse 19, it says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do not perceive it. I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." I love that because as we transition, as we make change, one of the things that we must learn to do is let go of what was in the past. So many people get hung up in transition, holding on to what used to be, when what used to be is no longer. Let me tell you how fast the past is. As soon as you say past, the past is in the past. You get that? That's just how fast the past is. And many of us can never walk into our future, be ushered into a new place, a new destiny, and see a new thing because we're busy holding on to what was. All right? Case in point, I grew up in the 60s. I was born in the 60s, but I grew up, I was developed in the 70s, and I love the 70s. And I'll never forget 1976. That was bicentennial year where everything was red, white, and blue. Everything. We had ice cream that was red, white, and blue. It was bicentennial year. We were 200 years old as a nation. And so, but I grew up in the 70s, man. I remember the Afro pics with the Soul Brother hand, and it was red, purple, and black. I remember that. I remember the bell-bottom pants and the girls used to wear what they call the halter tops. And that's where the halter top would cut off right here. Some of y'all remember that. That's why you can't talk about these young girls today, because you used to dress like that. But the halter tops where a little belly was showing right there. All right, I remember the halter tops. I remember the big afros. I used to have one of them big afros, man. I mean, listen. Everybody was trying to be like Michael Jackson back then. Everybody. I had one of the big afros, and I used to go to the Imperial Barbershop. It used to be right there on Liberty Street, and Reggie Attucks and Bobby Tichy and Conley, all of them, they used to cut my hair. But that was back in the 70s, man. I love the 70s. I love the music of the 70s, etc. That was some good music. I mean, there was nothing like Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On, and that's when the Barcades was out. That's when Teddy Pendergrass was thriving. That's when, I mean, you name it, Cameo was out. Come on, y'all remember that Cameo? Man, we had some of the best times back in those days, right? But watch this. As much as I enjoyed the 70s, it'll never be 1976 again. That day is gone. And what I'm telling you is that to manage the transition, you got to release what was and embrace what is new. The word says in Isaiah 43:19 that, behold, I am doing a new thing. And one of the ways that I have been able to manage this transition is that I did not see it as a negative. I saw it as a possibility and an opportunity. Man, this is an exciting time for church. This is an exciting time for ministry. This is an exciting time for pastors, all right? Because I've been traveling all over this country telling churches and pastors, we got to get ready. We got to make the transition. We got to get with technology. We got to make the move. We got to get ready to move. And you know, some of these churches were still singing, we shall not be moved. And it took a pandemic to move some of them, to get them going forward. But watch this, God is doing a new thing. And that's what you got to learn to embrace. But the reason that we cannot embrace the new thing that God is doing, even in your life, is because you like control. And you like to control the outcome. You love to control what's happening. You love to control when it takes place, how it takes place. But God is breaking the spirit of control in your life. So then now, manage the transition by letting go and let God. Enjoy this season that you're in. And I know you can't figure it out. I know it's not all coming together right now, but I'm so glad that I can trust God when I can't trace him. I'm so glad that I know that my faith says that I walk by faith and not by sight. I'm not going to always be able to see where God is taking me, but I know he's taking me somewhere. And I know he said he'll never leave me, nor will he forsake me. So then now he says, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do not perceive it. I am making a way in the wilderness. So then now what's happening is, think of a dry land. Think of a dry land. And God is taking a dry land and cutting a way for streams to come through it. A dry land where streams are now coming through it. And here's what I want to tell you, that for some of you who have been going through a drought spiritually, a drought emotionally, a drought mentally, God is saying today that your drought season is over, and that if you open up and let me do a new thing, I'm going to send you streams. I'm going to send you refreshment. I'm going to send you a flow of power, a flow of spirit, a flow of joy, a flow of love, a flow of opportunity, even in your wilderness. Good God Almighty. come here, Elijah, that there's a drought in the land, that nobody else is eating, but Elijah, I'm gonna make it so that a raven will feed you. That all grace, the word says, and that all grace shall abound towards you, which means that that's why you can't compare your favor with somebody else's favor, because what works for you may not be designated for somebody else. And the outcome for somebody else may not be for you. You got to know how God is flowing in your life. And so then now, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I see God in the midst of this pandemic opening up multiple streams of income for somebody. Multiple streams of income if you let him do the new thing. The new thing. Where is your book? Where is your CD? Where is your podcast? Where is your next business venture? Where is your next ministry opportunity? I see multiple streams coming your way. And you needed this time to sit down and get yourself together. That's what I see. So that the way you manage this process is let what happened in the past, let that be the past, and let God do a new thing. All right? Let God do a new thing. Secondly, and I'm almost done, Philippians 4, verse 6 through 7 says this: do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasseth all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Now, this word says, be ye not anxious for nothing. So the way you manage transition is stop being so anxious and stop rushing this process. There's a word where Paul says, and it slips in my mind right now. I preached it the other week on Phone Line Worship, where Paul essentially tells them, do not rush this moment away, for the gospel of Jesus Christ is being heard by those who need to hear it. And what I want to tell you is that don't be so anxious. Don't be so quick to get back to the place where we think we need to be, because God is breaking strongholds and places. Even in those places, God is breaking down some things that need to be broken down, that if you go back prematurely, you will mess up the process. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about what would have happened had Eve would have come out of her sleep before time? When Eve was put under heavy anesthesia, and Adam, should I say, if Adam was put under heavy anesthesia, when Adam was put under heavy anesthesia and God took out of his rib, out of his side, the rib, and out of his side came the woman, the rib. What would have happened had Adam come out of his sleep prematurely? Had Adam come out of his sleep prematurely, all right, then the process would have been incomplete. And Adam probably would have woken out of his sleep or come out of his sleep and said, my gracious, let me go back to sleep. And messed up the whole process. What I'm trying to tell you is that you have to learn how to wait on God. Waiting does not mean sitting on your laurels doing nothing. But when I think of waiting, I think of a server. When I go to the restaurant, I think of a good server. I think of a good waiter. A good waiter, you don't have to think about what it is that you want. A good waiter anticipates what you want. They know that if they bring your food, that they know that you're going to need utensils So you don't have to ask for them. They would make sure that you have utensils. They know how to be across the room and look and see that your water is low and then run over and fill up your water even before it gets low. That's a good waiter. In this culture, we tip people after they serve us. But in other cultures, depending on where you go, they tip people before they serve you. That's to ensure good service. Now, here's the deal. The thing I like about waiting on God, waiting on God, they that wait upon the Lord, I don't see that as me sitting down waiting. I see that as me doing my kingdom assignment, serving until he comes through. I see that working until he comes through. I see that as me preaching until he comes through. Giving and sacrificing and volunteering until he comes through. Waiting until he comes through. And the thing I like about God is that he not only tips us after we have served, but he tips us before. Because I was blessed before I even thought about doing anything on behalf of God, and you have been too. You have been too. Aren't you glad that he looked past your faults and saw your every need? Be not anxious for anything. Be not anxious for anything. I ran into my mother's cardiologist some time ago. I was in the gym working out, and my mother's cardiologist came in, and we just happened to be working out on the same machine. And so we introduced ourselves, and I didn't know him, and he didn't know me at that time. When I gave him my name, he says, "Would your mother happen to be Frances Mack?" I said, "That's my mother." And he broke out with this big smile, and he says, "Man, your mother told me all about you and your ministry, and so I'm glad to finally meet you." Then he says, "You want me to tell you why your mom is living and doing well as she is?" I said, "Why?" He said, there was a study done at Harvard some time ago that showed that people who live over the age of 80, he says one of the things that they've learned about them and the connection to their heart is that those people, the reason that they live so long, one of the reasons is because they learned how to master loss and change. He says there's a correlation between that of mastering loss and change and those who have longevity with life. Now, we all know that there are other ailments in that. We know that it's God who keeps us first, and we know it is God who decides when we leave. We know there are other ailments that may come in that we have nothing to do with. We understand that. There are factors, there are atmosphere factors that take people out before their time. There are toxins and all of that kind of stuff that comes into place. But what he was saying is that if we can keep stress off of our hearts and not be so anxious, not be so worried about what is not. There's a song that I like by Calvin Napper. You have to go pull this up. Calvin Napper, who's right here from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and one of my cousins, who also happens to be the drummer for Maze and Frankie Beverly. But he has a song on Spotify that you should hear. And the name of that song is "It Is What It Is, and You Can't Worry About What It Ain't." If we get to that place where you stop worrying about what is not and accept what it is, you can manage this transition. You can manage this transition. Beloved, listen, I got 3 more minutes and I got to be out of here. Know this, in Hebrews 13:8, and I'm done, it says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Now, here's how you're going to manage this transition. COVID-19 is new to you, but it's not new to God. A crisis may be new to you, but it's not new to God. A job layoff, a divorce, crime in our communities. It's new to us, but it's not new to God. God masters times of difficulty. And that the same God that was in control yesterday is the same God that's in control today. Same God when those 3 Hebrew boys went into the fiery furnace, you remember that? And the king said that if you don't bow down to me and worship me, I will put you in the fiery furnace. Isn't it something that the king wanted them to worship this golden statue? And today our country is divided over statues. But the king wanted them to worship this statue, and these boys refused to worship these statues, so they staged a protest. Their names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. You know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they staged a protest. And they said, we are not worshiping those statues. We're not worshiping those golden gods. And they were put into a fiery furnace. And the Bible says that the king ordered that they would heat up the fire 7 times hotter than the normal fire. If you ever get a chance to research some of the biblical history, right around that time, the average fire was about 1,200 degrees in a fiery furnace. So if you multiply 1,200 times 7, that's 8,400 degrees. That's a hot fire. It was so hot that the men that the king had assigned to take the men down to the fire, they ended up burning themselves. That's why, church, you got to be careful who you go around taking to the fire. Be careful whose name you're putting down in the community. Be careful whose name you're attacking on Facebook and social media, because the trap you build for one person, you're going to end up falling in that trap yourself. And so these 3 boys were put in the fire. But while they were in there, the same God that was there yesterday is the same God that's there today and forevermore, because watch what that God yesterday did. Because while they were there, watch this, the fire was burning, but the 3 boys that were in the fire were preserved in the midst thereof. The word says, read in Daniel 3, that when the king came back to look in the fire, their hair was still in place. And I might say to you that while some of you are going through transition and it may look like you're losing some stuff, God is keeping some stuff in place. I don't know whose testimony that is today, but watch this. You have gone through this whole transition with your job, with your home, with your children, with your school, with your marriage. You have gone through this whole transition with your church, but your testimony right now is that I still got some stuff in place. My hair is still in place. And if you ain't got no hair, you ought to still rub your head and say, I still got some stuff in place. I don't know about you, but that's my testimony, y'all, that yes, I have lost some things. Yes, I've gone through some things, but what I needed most is still in place. I still have my joy. I still have my peace. I still got my mind. What I needed most is still in place. And then, watch this, the fire was so hot that it burned the bands on their arms, but it didn't burn them. If you would let God do what God needs to do, he will burn away some stuff around you that won't harm you. He won't let it harm you. He'll burn away from some friends that you really don't need in your life. He'll burn away some toxic people that you really don't need in your life. He'll burn away some people that's trying to pull you down and try to tell you, and it won't even touch you. But then, here's the deal. When it was all said and done, they looked in the fire, and there was a 4th man in that fire. And the word says it looked like the Son of God. Here's my word for you, and we're closing out. that as you're going through transition, watch this, there's a fourth man. That is the same yesterday, today, and forever, who will always show up in the midst of your transition. I don't know what change you're going through, but God got you. God has you, and you're going to be fine. You're going to survive. You're going to sustain, and you're going to come out better than you were before. Your praise is going to be better. Your worship is going to be better. Your faith is going to be stronger, and you're going to have a testimony that if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know where I would be. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you gotten something from this, and I pray that you would give a donation to this ministry, and hopefully that we can continue to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thank you for tuning in. I love you, and be blessed.
Hello. First of all, we want to thank you so much for your generous support so that we can continue to operate in excellence. The following are ways to give tithes and offerings using technology. Use the Push Pay app or go to Giving page on the Union Baptist website. Use the Cash app, which is $UBC 1200 Trade. Use the Givelify app, Union Baptist Church, Winston-Salem. For Rise Up giving, please use the designated Cash app, $Union Baptist Rise Up. If you don't use technology for giving, you may bring your tithes, offering, and Rise Up campaign payments on Sundays from 10 a.m. till noon. Envelopes will be available. Or you can mail checks only. No cash, only checks to 1200 North Trade Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27101. Now, please make a note of the following announcements. Thursdays at 6:30 p.m., it's Breaking Bread with Bishop. Get the family together and have family dinner while watching Bible study. If this is not a convenient time, you can view the video 24 hours a day on our Facebook page, website, or YouTube. Saturday morning worship schedule. 9 a.m. phone line worship. 10 a.m. C2C remix phone line worship. 11 a.m. Saturday Connect worship by Zoom. On Saturday evening, we will have our phone line church conference call at 7 p.m. Our Sunday morning worship schedule, 8:30 a.m. phone line worship, 9 a.m. Sunday school, 10 a.m. virtual worship. Go to the Union Baptist website, YouTube, or Facebook. 12 p.m. service will be broadcast on the Truth radio station, 1340 a.m. Please note the new number for our phone line. Dial 774-258-4711. No code needed. Dial straight in. Please continue to visit the Union Baptist website updates page. Click on the members button. And remember, wash your hands frequently. Avoid large crowds over the size of 10. Cover coughs and sneezes. Stay at home when you're sick. Don't hoard food. The supply chain is fine right now. Have a blessed week.